Welcome back to the review of Tim's LL. In today's video, we will be discussing the movie T-34. It's time to begin our review, so let's get started. Spoiler alert. The movie is set in 1941, just outside Moscow, Russia. Red Army Junior Lieutenant Nikolai Ivishkin is driving a worn-down truck and trailer with a young private named Vasily beside him. As they cut down the street sign directing Berlin and Moscow to deter their enemies, a German Panzer III tank suddenly appears over the hill and opens fire on them. Nikolai, trained as an armor officer, skillfully maneuvers the truck to avoid the tank's shots, and they manage to escape uninjured but very shaken up. Later, at a headquarters in the village of Nefyadovka, Captain Mikhail Karin reports to his commander that his battalion is down to only one surviving tank, with no tank commander left. Karin is severely injured and unable to lead, but his commander tells him to fight to the bitter end. Fortunately for him, Nikolai arrives at the headquarters and is immediately appointed commander of the only surviving tank. Their mission is to cover the retreat of the echelon and the hospital, as the Germans are advancing towards Nefyadovka. Nikolai is assigned to command a damaged T-34 tank whose commander was killed, with orders to delay the German advance with only the single tank and a small number of supporting infantry. The men doubt his command as it is his first day on the front lines. However, Nikolai tells them that he graduated with distinction and berates them for their laziness and lack of preparation in fixing the tank. He warns them that their whining is perceived as cowardice and will be punished if they continue. Before leaving for a strategy meeting, he orders them to start prepping the tank and loading plenty of extra ammunition. The following day, German SS officer Dendarten and his men watch the village from behind the tree line. He believes the Russians are planning something and orders his crew to move forward. Unbeknownst to them, Nikolai and his crew lay in ambush for the platoon of German panzers commanded by Dendarten. They watch silently inside the tanks, waiting for the opportunity to strike. When the German tanks are within range, the platoon stops. Dendarten inspects the village from afar with his binoculars and sees a cannon made only of wood to trick the Germans. They fall for it as Dendarten orders his tanks to take it out. Then Nikolai's T-34 shoots at two tanks, destroying them with one shot as they are hidden underneath a haystack. They shoot at another tank, and their location is now compromised, so they move out of the haystack and hide in a barn. The German soldiers retaliate by approaching on foot, while the Russians hide and wait for the T-34 to attack again. Their T-34 takes down another German panzer, while the remaining infantry takes down the foot soldiers. Their T-34 manages to destroy 6 panzers. Eventually, Jaga and his men manage to chase down the T-34. However, Jaga's command panzer and the Russian T-34 faced each other in a final duel. They shot at each other, and both tanks became disabled. Half of the Russian tank crew was killed while trying to escape. Nikolai managed to get out of the T-34 and pulled out the severely injured driver, Stephen Vasilyanek. Simultaneously, Jaga got out of his panzer, saw an escaping Nikolai, and shot at him before passing out due to his injuries. At the same time, Nikolai and Stefan were left to be captured. 3 years later, in 1944, during the Third Reich in the Thuringia S3 concentration camp, a train arrived at the station and the prisoners of war came pouring out. The camp's warden welcomed the prisoners to their resort, scolding them by saying that Germans were their masters. With the help of the camp's interpreter, bilingual Russian prisoner Anya, he threatened to kill Nikolai for not following orders and ordered his men to put him in a special unit where they tortured him for information about his name and rank. Gaining permission from Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler and General Heinz Guderian, he recruited an experienced tank crew from Soviet PALs in a concentration camp to act as opponents for training the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend. Nikolai had been a prisoner for 3 years and refused to give his name. Still, Jaeger recognized his photograph from the camp records. Jaeger proposed the idea to Nikolai through the camp's interpreter, Anya. At first, Nikolai refused, but he agreed after Jaeger threatened to kill Anya, and he finally revealed his name and rank. The next day, Nikolai was forced to choose his crew from the other prisoners of war or PALs in the camp. Nikolai picked out 3 other tankers from the PALs, his previous driver, Stepin Vasilyanek, Serafimyanov, a loader to a crew of a T-34, and Damian Volkic, a gunner to a crew of a T-85 that the Germans had just captured. They were assigned to a captured T-34, which they had to fix to prepare for a test in 1 week. At first, the Germans ordered the Soviet prisoners to clear out the rotting and burned bodies from inside the tank. However, by removing the bodies, they found a few remaining live shells and hand grenades. They were granted permission to bury their comrades, and they hid the ammunition with the bodies in a stone burial on the edge of the training grounds. Later, Nikolai briefed them about the training grounds and hinted at an escape plan. He explained the plan to Stepin to convince him. The other tankers refused to participate, but they eventually agreed. He later got called to meet with Jaga, and that evening, Jaga told him where the T-34 should be positioned. However, Nikolai wanted to place it elsewhere, where they wouldn't be expected. Jaga agreed and praised him for their stealth in their previous battle. After fixing the T-34, Nikolai and his men showed their skill with the tank by driving it around an unbalanced terrain in circles. Not trusting the Soviets and intimidated by their skill, Jaga ordered his men to lay anti-tank mines around the entirety of the training grounds. Anya convinces Nikolai to let her escape with them, as only she has the opportunity to steal a map from Jaeger's office. She also gives him a mold to make a key. The next day, Jaeger prepares his men for the training exercise against the Russians. Before the training exercise, Nikolai and his crew retrieve the ammunition from the stone grave. The German tank sets off to approach the Russian T-34. Simultaneously, Anya goes to Jaeger's office to steal a map that shows a safe route out of the area and gain a pass letting her out of the camp for a day. Meanwhile, Nikolai's crew creates a smoke screen to mask their movements. Believing the T-34 is unarmed, the Germans are unprepared when the trainee's first Panther tank is disabled. This shocks all the officers watching, and they scramble to alert the Panthers. Then, a second shell is fired directly into the observation tower, killing most of the officers inside except for Jaeger and Udarian, who jump out at the last second. The T-34 boldly storms through the training grounds car park, crushing many of the officers' staff cars and breaking through the main gate, avoiding the minefield. The tankers pick up Anya at a bus stop outside the camp, which shocks the women at the bus stop. With the help of Anya's stolen map, Nikolai plots a course toward Czechoslovakia and back to the Red Army's lines. In the first town they come through, Nikolai and his hungry crew stop to find some needed fuel, new clothing, and fresh food. The people and guards are helpless as they watch them take what they need. They burn their ragged prisoner clothes as they drive out of town. As they move out of the town, enjoying their stolen goods, they suddenly encounter an anti-tank blockade boasting a towed anti-tank gun. They barely manage to escape, but, thanks to Nikolai's quick order to make a sharp left, there's only a deep dent in the side armor of the right side of the tank. Nikolai's crew drives the tank through the woods, avoiding the Germans and their gunshots. They cross the road again out of sight and disappear into the deep forest until they are clear. Meanwhile, Jaeger and Udarian receive news that the Russian escapees have escaped the blockade. Jaeger theorizes they are heading to the border and orders troops to tighten their hold on the minor roads. But he believes they can still trap them and orders assistance for air support. After driving for a few hours, Stepan says that the tank will overheat soon. So, Nikolai orders them to get to the mountain pass, where they will spend the night. They pull off into the woods to rest for the time being. Nikolai helps Anya out of the tank, and there is a clear connection between them as they look at each other intensely. Their crew spots a body of water nearby, and they enjoy their freedom by bathing in the water while Anya prepares dinner. Meanwhile, Jaeger takes to the sky in a Fessler Stork to find Nikolai's T-34. He then takes command of 4 Panthers and prepares an ambush in the small town of Klingenthal. At first, Nikolai suggests abandoning the tank and splitting up, believing they have a better chance of survival if they separate still. The crew insists on staying with him and is reluctant to leave their beloved tank. Before dawn, knowing that the Germans will be hunting them, Nikolai wakes up Anya and the crew and tells them they are all in danger. He tells Anya not to go with them in the tank and to make her way east on foot through the forests. He tells her to meet them by a meadow near Klingenthal, but she must leave at night. If they are away by the next night, Nikolai and the crew say their goodbyes for now. At night, the T-34 enters the town and stumbles into the first of the 4 Panthers. Instead of trying to pierce its front armor, Volkic fires a shot under its hull that ricochets off the pavement and penetrates its underbelly. Nikolai realizes they are surrounded by the remaining 3 Panthers, including Yaga. Knowing they must distract the enemies, he sends Volkic armed only with a grenade to disable one. Stepan crashes their T-34 through building walls before unexpectedly having a near collision with one of the other Panthers. The Russians manually turn their damaged tank and get a shot off just as the Germans are about to fire. They destroy the Panzer due to an ammo rack explosion, rattling the T-34 tank and the crew, stunning them. Meanwhile, the 2 other Panthers have arrived on the scene, and one aims at Nikolai. However, Volkic fires a shell out of the captured German tank. The 3rd Panther is disabled, but Yaga quickly disposes of the captured Panther, badly wounding Volkic. Both Jaga and Nikolai emerge from their tank. Jaga throws down his glove, inviting Nikolai to a duel. Nikolai asks for 5 minutes to pick up the wounded Volkic. Both tanks then move outside the town and face off over a narrow stone bridge across the river. As the tanks charge at each other, Jaeger fires several shots at the T-34 but fails to disable it. At the same time, Nikolai waits to fire their last shell directly through the driver's vision port. The two tanks fire simultaneously, badly damaging but not disabling each other. However, Jaeger's crew is killed, leaving him alive but badly wounded. Out of ammunition, Nikolai orders Vasilyanik to ram Jaeger's tank, pushing it to the edge of the bridge. Jaeger crawls out of his panther while Nikolai aims for a stolen rifle at him. Jaeger shouts for Nikolai to shoot him, but Nikolai offers him faux mercy. Jaeger extends his hand, and the two adversaries exchange a handshake of respect. Nikolai tries to pull Jaeger to safety, but Jaeger lets go, allowing himself to fall to his death as his panther tips over the bridge and plummets into the river. With their tank tracks disabled, the crew reunites with Anya outside the town, carrying the wounded Volkik on a makeshift stretcher. They make their way toward the Russian lines on foot. The movie ends with a dedication to the Red Army tank crews of the Great Patriotic War, all of whom are in the status of heroes for fighting against the invasion of their country. Thanks for watching. As always, you'll find the movie title in the video's description. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the awesome review.